Hi, I would like to take a moment to begin the discussion of the number two posture. Number one is the upward experience. And we've been doing number three, which is the downward experience. So if you look at the blue cone or funnel like experience, that's posture number one. If you look at the gold colored downward flow, that's posture number three. These in the iris constitutions, that's what's called the shaker pattern or the force, the mobilization of change or transmission. And then the bottom one is the stream. That's the consolidation, the physical embodiment. That's the group dynamic function in the family and the community and the physical body. It has a lot to do with the mind and the free will. Posture number two is in between them, and that corresponds to the posture of holding the earth at the chest level. Two basic forces here: the vertical, which is to me the solstice going to the top and down the back. So the ascending day length goes up at an extreme in the solstice and travels down the back for 6 months to the bottom. This is a circulation of life force ascending and descending. The one at the chest is a horizontal flow. This horizontal flow has two sides to it. That's basically electro and magnetic. Magnetic is the second posture. All that means is that the four forces in physics, the electro, the magnetic, the gravity, and the force, these are the four forces that are primarily engaged in creating physical matter. So in doing the second posture, we're really taking the energy from above, the feeling, which is effortless, really without mind. It's about the allowing. It's about celebration, thankfulness, reverence, whatever you care to use. And we're bringing that down to the experience of the heart. The heart being the crosswalk or the intersection between the vertical and the horizontal. This position is the primary place where we actually can choose to engage in the giving and receiving function. That's why at this position, the heart has two sides. One part of the heart, which is on the ascending equinox, that's the spring equinox. That's when the energy of the rising sun reaches the spring equinox, and that now has arrived at the heart level. 6 months later, in the autumn equinox, it's in the back in the same location. On the front side of this, it's about a giving. On the back side, it's about a receiving. So this position here is really about both sides, but it's about giving and receiving. It's about sharing what you feel above and aligning that feeling to arrive in one's own heart, and that's about giving and receiving. Now, ideally, that would include, of course, your family, your community, your country, your cultural, your ethnic, your racial groups, your economic classes. That would include every living thing on Earth, every mineral, every plant, every animal, and so on. It's an appreciation of the design of the experience of the earth as virtually a nursery for souls. By that, in this realm, we are permitted, even encouraged, to learn how to use our free will and then to experience the results of our choices. Some would say it's a law of compensation. Others would say it's a cause effect reaction function. Others would say it's karma. Whatever you want to call it is, on the earth plane, we're experiencing the results of our choices. Now, one of the choices we could make is the willingness to equally give and receive with every other soul on earth, not really paying any favoritism because they are genetically related to our biological body, and we call that family. They may be from the same region, they may be from the same city, they may be from the same community, and we have a favoritism of our community over a different community. Many sports teams are like that. My city against your city. Meh, that's not really it. That's a 3. But at 4, it has to do with inclusiveness of the willingness to give and receive with everyone. So in the process of doing the practice, what we're also encouraging for those who want to participate is how this relates to 5. One step higher is the ability to be able to relate to it globally. My country is a 4, my community is a 3, myself is a 2, my family is a 1. But if I want to include all of that at the same time, that's really what the giving and receiving can be if we want it to be. So that's the significance of this location. What's really fun about this location is when it reaches the equality point. By that I mean the equinox is a time period where roughly the same amount of night and the same amount of day is on both sides of the planet. At the equinox, the entire planet is more or less equal. Equal in the radiance of the sun, equal in many other things, and there would be theoretically some unusual possibilities when the entire planet is unified during that equinox. There could be some very fun things we might just explore. Now, if you're really interested in doing some experimentation on the equinox, I would suggest you start today. Why? Because we're going to collect the experiences of the feelings every day, ideally every 2 hours. We just keep the postures flowing all the way through the sequences, and we utilize the progression of the time, the day, and the month. After 3 months of building, we arrive at the equinox. Now, the interesting thing about the equinox is it actually shifts different sides of the family. So, for example, on the spring equinox, it engages the beginning of the father's side of the family. And for 6 months, it travels through the corresponding grandparents or meridian lines, organs and glands and body systems that correspond to the father's side of the family. Then in the autumn equinox, it changes to 6 months of the mother's side of the family. Now, I know that's a lot to get, but right now in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the month of number 1 sun. Many things about that you could study and look at, because the more you can feel what it feels like to have the experience of the humility and the sincere desire to grow, and link that to the second month, which is called the month of truth, and linking the second month to the third month, which is the authenticity. You just traveled through 3 months in the winter season, or the winter processes after the winter solstice. You've actually created 3 months of a link, linking it all the way up to the beginning of the spring equinox. Now, if you're on the opposite side of the planet right now, and you're in the southern hemisphere from where I am, you're just beginning a very significant time period where the day length is gradually starting to decline. As it's declining, it's actually the energy is going down the back of the neck and will travel for 3 months until it reaches the place just opposite the front of the chest at the heart. And now both sides of the body have had experiences. The spring and the autumn merge at that time. And this for me is equinox. I really like the equinox. I think it's possible that ancient civilizations used to measure exactly when the equinox was arriving for lots of potential uses. Physical healing could be one of them. Unusual journeys could be another reason. So I'm kind of curious about these things. So I'm going to do my best to prepare myself for the experience of the next equinox. Now, in order to do that, I suggest you practice these 4 different postures. The one above comes down to the experience of the first equinox and flows down into the 3rd posture that we spend so much time on, which is the utilization of the free will, the utilization of the mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, and animal kingdom on 3 different diameters. One diameter was the diameter of the Earth. Another diameter was the diameter of the galaxy. And the 3rd diameter is the diameter of the universe. And the relationship to the divine, which is above or outside the universe. You have to experience it for yourself, whatever that may look like. So if you're really interested in engaging in this experience leading into the equinox, I suggest you practice. Now, the practice is best utilized by acknowledging the experience of the progression of time. That's why we do it every 2 hours, and you put in a little bit of practice, 10 or 15 seconds, sometimes 30 seconds, and you're now starting to mobilize the links of the hours of the day. And if you do that sufficiently consistently enough, you will have made it a long-term memory for you to unify the experience of the winter season and merge it into the experience of spring. And we all love that springtime with its radiant beauty of flowers progressing, trees growing, and it shows us that the spring season is what grows the heart. That's really why it's there, to show us that coming out of the winter, the isolation, the somewhat feeling alone, doing things by yourself, and then merging into that sweet experience that comes with that springtime function. So this is a basic introduction to the first step of the equinox. Now, those of you who want to do the equinox with us, you can, without the necessity of going through the postures and so on. You can do that. You have the freedom to do whatever you want. But I really urge you to consider joining one of the new groups so that you can be part of a group of 33 people who are designed to specifically create a community of a global nature, so that when the time comes for the utilization of the equinox, there can be a whole nother potential effect. But that's up to you. This is just an offering. You can make the choices. And oh, by the way, I really don't know what's going to happen because I've not ever done this with a group before. Usually I test these things completely alone and I have my experiences and I come back and try to share it. But in this one, really ideally can only be done actually as a global phenomenon with a group of people who sincerely want to give and receive without expectation or demand of any kind. So you can decide for yourself. I hope this is useful. If you have questions, you can post them on the Rayid Facebook. We'll talk to you then.